Thank you, worship team. Good morning. It's good to see everybody this morning. Welcome. Welcome those of you who are online with us this morning. We've got a lot coming up, so I want to just give you some really quick announcements. Last week, some of you know Marina and Anthony. They're getting married this month, and they would love for you to attend if you know them and want to come and be a part of their special day on September 20th at 1 p.m. right here. Plan to join us for that. And then a couple other things we have coming up. Our line dancing class is back up for round 2. Jean's excited. We've already got people signing up. So if you want to sign up, if you want to find out more about this, just click the QR code that's in front of you. It'll take you to a link that'll get you all that information and the sign up page and all that. And I don't know how this session will go, but last session we packed it out. In fact, we had more than we could really handle in the space that we have for it. So if you do plan to come, sign up soon, sign up early, invite your friends. This is a great opportunity just to invite somebody to come here with you and have some good fun. And then small groups, I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we're going to talk about small groups today a good bit. But small groups are getting ready to launch this month, so I encourage you to check those out. Find one that fits into your schedule, fits into where you are, and just is the best fit for you. Let me help you do that. Let others help you do that, and plug into a small group. And then finally is our meal pack is coming up on November 8th and 9th, and I know that's a little ways off, but the reason I'm bringing it up now, and we're going to be talking about it every week for the next few weeks, is we're in the middle of our fundraising for Meal Pack. We've already done a little bit a couple of months ago with the cabaret, and that was a lot of fun and generated some funds. But we still have about $10,000 we need to raise between now and our Meal Pack time. So we're going to be talking to you a little bit about how you can help us with that. We'll have some video clips over the next few weeks just to let you know what Meal Pack looks like if you've never been to a mobile pack. And just some of the things that it goes to help and support, so you'll know more about it. But Mary Beth is our team leader for Meal Pack, and she's going to come and talk a little bit about it this morning.
Are specifically created for kids that are malnourished, and so it's a really great event. If you haven't been there, it's like assembly line. We pack all the meals. It's high energy, a lot of fun, and so we encourage you to be there. But we pay for all of the ingredients that we pack, and so it's really important that we raise the money to pay for that. And then not only do you help to feed the kids, the meals go to organizations that are working in communities doing other things like schools and clinics, and so providing the food helps them to do the other things like teach the kids, and it also encourages the kids to come to school because they know they're going to get fed, and so then they're educated and they can make a difference in their community. And so we have outside you can see some suggested donations if you want to look at that. Packing just one little bag is $2. That's 6 meals. If you pack a box, it's 216 meals, and it's $63. If you pack a whole pallet, that's 7,776 meals, which would feed a whole class for 1 year, and that's $2,000 and $255. So if we do have some little trinkets if you want to take one if you donate a certain amount. But the main thing is you're feeding kids, and so help us to raise the money. Thank you.
Meal Pack as you can while we're raising funds, and then in October we'll start signing up to serve and to pack and to all that good stuff. So with all that, let's go to God in prayer this morning. Let's just remember folks in our church that are just struggling with things. We have folks who have family members with surgeries coming up. We have people who are recovering from medical stuff. Virgil said to tell everyone hello. Those of you who know Virgil, he's still at the physical therapy rehab center, just trying to get his strength back so he is more stable and less of a fall risk, so he can go back home. But pray for him and others who are just continuing just to struggle along the way. Let's go to God in prayer. God, we thank you for just a chance to be here and to worship you this morning, and I just pray that all of us would just be able to just focus on you in some way and just drop some of the distractions that we all have. And then we just lift up everyone in our church who has a need of some sort, whether it's a need with their work situation, or it's a medical issue going on, or something with a family member, or it's a relationship issue. I just lift everyone up and just pray that they would feel your presence in their life, but also they would just sense your direction in their life in the way that they need it. And then, God, I pray you open our hearts this morning as we just talk about community and the value of that and the importance of that and some of the things that you have to say to us about that. In Christ's name I pray, amen. So I want to start with a question today. How many of you like to exercise? Show of hands. Okay, more people than I expected. That's awesome. Exercises. Anybody here a member of a gym? Okay, a few more people. I'm actually a member of 2 gyms right now. Can't tell, I know. Before I get, this is kind of a one-off, but if you have medical insurance, which I hope we all do, you should check your medical insurance, because we found out our medical insurance offers us a discounted rate at something called OnePass. And so, yeah, you got that? And so it's really pretty cheap. It's about as cheap as a general gym membership, and it lets me into tons of gyms all around the area. So I have no excuse. There's a gym a mile from my house. There's a gym a mile from where I work, and there's gyms in between. So anyway, some of you are members of the gym. Here's a fun fact you may not know about gyms. The gyms that sell membership and all that, like LA Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness and Planet Fitness, they all have fitness in them. But anyway, their business model is based on over 60% of their members not using their gyms. Did you know that? I think it's about 63 or 67%. I can't remember the exact number that it is today. So it's based on over 60% of the people who buy membership at their gyms not using their gyms, or using it very infrequently. Like they show up January 2nd because it's their New Year's resolution, and they join and they use it through February, and then they stop, right? And it's a great business model. I mean, it works because it's funding the gym, it's keeping the doors open and everything working and all, but it's not filling it up and packing it out and making it miserable for people who try to work out. It's not wearing out the equipment. So it's an incredible business model. But why do people purchase a gym membership to begin with? Well, here's why. Because they believed, right? When they purchased it, they believed. They believed in fitness. They believed in exercise. They believed in maybe getting some cardio in. It would help them get healthier. They believed in health. They believed that they could benefit from it, and so they joined the gym. But many of those people with a gym membership, like I said, over 60% of them, they're not getting the benefits that they actually believe that they need and that they actually have access to. And here's why that's true, because often when it comes to exercise, we don't act on what we believe, right? People don't always act on what they believe. And as we all know, when it comes to the area of health, whether it's nutrition and eating healthy and eating right, or it's exercise or whatever, believing makes absolutely no difference, does it, when it comes to your health? Believing doesn't do anything for you. In fact, if we did a survey, we probably all believe basically the same things about health and fitness and nutrition and stuff like that. We're probably all believers, but believing doesn't make any difference. Doing is what makes all the difference when it comes to health and exercise and fitness. In fact, how many of you that you do exercise, those of you who raised your hand and said, yeah, I love exercise, I exercise, or maybe you don't love it, but you actually do it anyway, but how many of you have ever exercised like me with a bad attitude, right? Well, almost everybody. You were forced to when you're in high school, right, in gym and PE. But I did. I did this Friday. I didn't feel like going. I didn't want to go, and I went anyway. But we do. You can have a bad attitude. In fact, you can exercise and believe it's not even doing any good, and still benefit from it, because doing is what actually makes the difference and not believing when it comes to health and exercise. Now, this is true in a lot of areas of our lives. And we're going to talk about, like I said, community in just a minute. But one more thing about exercise. Isn't it true for those of you who do exercise, or maybe you used to exercise at some point, doesn't having a partner make all the difference as well when you're exercising? Yep, Kazu's raising his hand. Thumbs up. Thanks, Kazu. I mean, it's so much easier. It's so much easier to talk yourself out of going if nobody's there waiting on you, right? But if somebody's there waiting on you, it's easier to talk yourself into going, isn't it? And for those of you who have maybe hired a trainer somewhere along the way, and you've made that appointment, and then that it's that morning, and you just didn't sleep well, or you're stressed, or you just don't feel like going. You normally talk yourself out of it. You know that trainer is there waiting on you. Or if it's a team sport and you're on a team, you're just more inclined to show up, because here's the deal: accountability actually works, doesn't it? Now, these two principles right here, doing is what makes all the difference, and accountability works. These two principles hold true in our faith journey as well. Every Christian, I mean, think about this. Every Christian actually believes, right? I mean, believes something. I mean, it's why the New Testament refers to us sometimes as believers, because we all believe. Every Christian believes something. But the other thing we also know is that not all believers, again, actually act on what they believe. Just like with exercise. We believe what the New Testament teaches. We believe what we read Jesus taught, but we don't always forgive, do we? We don't always love our neighbors as ourselves, or we don't always love our enemies. All believers aren't generous the way that Jesus talked about generosity, and I could go on and on and on and on of things we believe, but we don't actually do. We believe, and if somebody questions our faith, if somebody kind of pushes back and challenges, we'd be quick to defend what we believe. But what Jesus says and what the New Testament teaches, it's not believing that makes the difference in our lives. It's what we do with what we believe. And here's something that we all need to understand. We can't be followers of Jesus in isolation. You can be a Christian, you can be a member of a church, but when it comes to following Jesus, you can't do that in isolation. We can't follow Jesus by ourselves. In fact, the Apostle Paul, when Paul would talk to people about what it meant to be a follower of Jesus, he would underscore the fact that this is a very relational thing, following Jesus. And if you go through all of the letters that Paul wrote in the New Testament, you can compile. In fact, we've compiled this. He gives us basically a list. We sometimes refer to it as the one another's list. And he says, here's what it looks like to act on your faith. Here's what it looks like to actually do what you believe. Here's what it looks like to follow Jesus. And he says things like this. He says, forgive one another, accept one another, care for one another, encourage one another, submit to one another, restore one another, carry one another's burdens in life, and then bear with one another. And Paul would say, if you're a follower of Jesus, that this is what it looks like. And clearly, you can't do any of these alone, can you? And the point being is, it's not enough to believe it privately. You have to behave it publicly. It's not enough to simply believe it privately, because belief doesn't make any practical difference. It's doing that makes the difference. Now, I think this is a big deal, and the reason it's a big deal is I, like a lot of you, I was raised on a very vertical version of Christianity. The Christian culture that I grew up in essentially measured spiritual maturity by being moral and by being generous. And that was pretty much it. As long as I behaved myself and followed the rules, and as long as I was generous and gave my money, we called it a tithe, I could be confident that God was good with me and I was good with God. And that's just kind of a very vertical type of Christianity. God, how are we doing, God? God, I'm behaving myself, so you're good with me and I'm good with you, right? And the reality about that kind of faith is that while being moral is very important, and while being generous is very important. Jesus talked about generosity so much in his ministry. The reality is, it's not that those things are not good things. It's just that those things are not enough. So what I want to do for a minute is I want to show you a passage in the New Testament. So we're in a book of Hebrews. We don't go to Hebrews very often. And the book of Hebrews, we don't really know who wrote the book of Hebrews, but we do know that it was written to Jewish people who were living in the first century, who had become Christians. They'd become followers of Jesus. And I want to show you how the author of Hebrews, a Christian living in the first century, I want you to see how quickly they're able to kind of shift back and forth between this vertical type of Christianity and a horizontal, very relational type of faith. So this isn't either or, this is both and. And so here's Hebrews, it's chapter 10, starting at verse 19, and it says, "Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus." Now, again, the author is writing to who? He's writing to Jewish people who have become Christians. And so when they hear his terminology here, they know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about the Holy of Holies, which was at the center of the temple, and only the high priest were allowed to go in to the Holy of Holies. And because of what he said earlier, he's saying, now that you're Jesus followers, we have direct access. We don't need a priest anymore. We have direct access to God. And he goes on and he says this, we have access by a new and living way open for us through the curtain. But he's not talking about the physical curtain that actually hung as a barrier between the temple courts and the holies of holies. He again, everybody reading this, they knew exactly what he was talking about here. He said, the new way is through his body, talking about the body of Christ. It says, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us, and again, this is just kind of very vertical type thing. It's just me and God. He says, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience and having our bodies washed with pure water. And that language is very, very vertical. It's just between me and God. Nobody else is what he's talking about. But then he shifts. The writer, he kind of pivots here and he says, let us hold unswervingly. And I love that term, unswervingly, there. You might want to memorize that part of the verse the next time your spouse is driving or you're with a teenage driver or something, unswervingly. But let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. So he goes from vertical of this, we have access to God, we can pray to God on our own, we don't need a temple, we don't need priests or any of that. But then he shifts and he says, but while we're here on planet Earth, we need to be faithful to the things that we've been called by God to do. Unlike our private belief, he's saying, which is vertical, we need to live out that which is horizontal. And then he says this, he gets very, very specific on how to do that. He says, and let us consider, or let us carefully pay attention to, or give careful attention to. He says, let us consider how we may spur, and here's Paul's words, how we may spur one another on. So the author, he pivots to this, from this kind of invisible, I can pray to God, I'm good with God, I have access to God, from this kind of intangible thing to this doable, highly relational phrase, this phrase of let us spur one another on. And this term spur, it's so interesting. He says, in your relationships with other believers, in your relationships in the church, he says, I want you to stir each other up, but not in a bad way, okay? But the writer is saying, I want you to stir each other up. I want you to be in each other's lives to the point where when you see a friend in life struggling in their faith, you have access to that friend. I want you to be in people's lives in such a way that when you see a couple struggling together, then you have access to that couple. When you see your friends, kids begin to kind of maybe go down the wrong path, and mom and dad, they don't know what to do, they don't know what to say, you have access to that kid. He says, I want you to be in relationship with each other in such a way that you're able to spur each other on positively at times, and then sometimes it may get a little bit negative, but I want you to be in each other's lives in a real and tangible way. I want you to spur each other on. This is very, very relational. And what are we to spur each other on to? And again, he gets really practical and really, really specific. He says, we are to spur each other on towards love and good deeds. And this is belief in action, right? This is his way of saying you need to get on the treadmill. Don't just have it sitting in your garage with laundry hanging on it. Or you need to get on that elliptical. You need to show up to that gym. You need to be with that team. You need to get there for that training session, whatever it is. You need to actually do something, because believing in exercise does nothing for you any more than simply knowing I can pray to God and I can have a clear conscience with God will help you be who God created you to be. And the Apostle Paul, and the author of Hebrews, says, yeah, all that's great, but what are you doing? Because doing is what makes all the difference in your life. And chances are you're not going to do very much if you don't have someone in your life spurring you on and encouraging you to make progress. And then the author of Hebrews, he gets really up in everybody's business with what he says next. And he says this, not giving up meeting together, as some of you are in the habit of doing. And so he kind of starts wagging his fingers at the people he's writing to, because they used to do something and now they're not doing something. And he's saying that was really important, and why aren't you still doing it? Now, when I grew up, preachers, and my dad was a preacher, preachers would read this verse right here, and they would teach that it means that you basically need to come to church every Sunday morning for worship, sit in rows, and listen to me preach. Right? Some like what we're doing right now. But I don't think that's what the author of Hebrews was talking about at all. And based on what he's already said, and based on what he's getting ready to say, the author of Hebrews is saying that if you're not meeting together in such a way that you're able to spur each other on, if you're not in community with other people, other believers, where you're kind of in each other's lives in a significant way and you're encouraging each other, then there's something missing, and it actually might affect your faith. And here's what I think Paul, and the author of Hebrews, is trying to get us to understand. It's this, that there is a divinely designed correlation between community and faithfulness. That there is a divinely designed correlation between community, being in community, not just sitting in rows, but being in circles. There's a correlation between community and faithfulness to God. Because here's the deal. Faith comes alive in community. And here's why. Because community is where you can see faith working and where you are challenged to work it. And if you're not in intentional community with other believers, you will be in spiritual isolation. And when you're in spiritual isolation, you risk becoming self-centered and self-focused and short-sighted. And now, isn't this true? And this is a little bit of a tangent here, but I wanted to mention this. But isn't this true that people who think they're better than other people haven't taken the time to hear the stories of the people that they think they're better than? You ever thought about that? That people who think they're better than people, they simply haven't taken the time to hear the stories of the people that they think they're better than. Have you ever met someone who thinks they're better than someone else? Worked with someone who just thought they were better than someone else? Maybe had a family member who thought that way, or a neighbor? And when you think of those people, I mean, isn't this true? That people who think they're better than people, they just haven't heard other people's stories. In other words, as soon as you get in community with someone else, and as soon as you get in relationship with someone, and you start to hear their story, don't you go, oh, and then if you're really, really dialed in emotionally, you think to yourself, if I'd grown up there, if I'd had your experience, if I'd been taught that, then I'd probably be just like you too, right? In other words, hearing a person's story is what brings people together. And this is what community is, and this is what the body of Christ is, and it's what it was in the first century church, and it was amazing. in the first century church. Men and women. We talked about this last week when we talked about Lydia and the slave girl and the jailer, that men and women, rich and poor, adults and children, would come together in these little groups. And what they had in common, it wasn't money and it wasn't power and it wasn't position or any of that. The only thing they had in common was Jesus. And it was so unusual and it was so powerful. And if you read that part of Christian history, you'll see that it was that kind of community that literally changed the world. It brought down the Roman Empire. It did away with paganism as it was known then. And that's why the author of Hebrews is writing to these first century Christians, and he's saying, I can't believe some of you have given up meeting together in that way. What are you thinking? I mean, he's saying you can't do this alone, that this was divinely designed to be a one another thing. And so here's how he concludes this passage. He says, not giving up meeting together, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. He says, every single believer, no matter how strong your faith is, you need to be in relationship where you are encouraged by people and people are encouraging you and you are encouraging them. And what does it mean to encourage? Well, it simply means to instill courage in someone. That's what encourage means, to instill courage in someone else. Why? Because it takes courage to live out your faith at work and in the marketplace, doesn't it? It takes courage to live out your faith in your neighborhood. It takes courage to live out your faith and to be a follower of Jesus at your school, doesn't it? It takes courage to give, and it takes courage to be generous and to forgive and to love and to extend grace in the way that Jesus invited us and commanded us to do it. It takes courage to do something, not just to believe something. So the author of Hebrews says, you need to be in community. You need others, and more importantly, others need you. So here's my question for us this morning, then we'll kind of leave it here. But is anyone, outside of your family, is anyone spurring you on to live out your faith? Is there anybody in your life? Is there a group of people in your life who are spurring you on? Or have you, like some of the Christians in the first century have, that the Hebrew author was writing to, have you perhaps given up meeting together in that way? Who do you have spurring you on, and who are you spurring on in your life? That's why I tell you all the time how important small groups are here. Small groups give you the opportunity to do just that, to encourage others and to be encouraged by others. Serving in ministry here gives you the opportunity to do just that very same thing. But I believe small groups, I believe they are the best place for you to grow in your faith, even better than this place and what we're doing right now. That small groups are so important. Now, I know what some of you are thinking and some of the pushback you're giving to me. And you're in your mind, you're probably saying, well, David, I just don't have time to do that. But you don't have time to exercise either, do you? And that's why you don't. But you wish you did, don't you? You know you could benefit from it. And for those of you who have prioritized exercise, you know you gave something up in order to be able to exercise because it's good for you. And those who have prioritized community and have made it a priority to find a small group and to sign up and to show up, they would tell you, and you can ask them because they're here this morning, they would tell you that they are better off because they did. So I hope you will take a chance and commit to being in a small group. And if you do, what you will find will be some of the best people that you've ever met. It might be some of the best friends you've ever made. And by the way, you're not joining a small group here anyway for the rest of your life. You're joining it for about 8 or 9 weeks. And then we'll kind of take a break, and then after a few weeks, we'll start some more up, and you can jump back in that small group if you loved it, and if the people were crazy, you can find another small group, and I promise you they won't be crazy. So here's the deal. I'm going to be out in the lobby today, and I would love to talk to you about our small groups. You can click that QR code that's in front of you with your phone, and it'll take you to our small groups page, and you can read all about the 5 groups that we have going on this semester. There are sign-up sheets out on the community board out in the lobby, paper copies. You can sign up there if that's easier. for you. But I'm going to be around in the lobby. I would love to answer any of your questions about any of our small groups. Maybe you want to find one, but you're just not sure what they're made of, and is this the right age group for me, or they're people in the same kind of phase of life as me? I'd love to help you kind of look at that and discover that. The other thing I want to say too is if you're in a small group, if you're regular in a small group, and you plan to attend small group this semester, would you sign up too? And you might be saying, well, my leader knows I'm coming, and I know all the ins and outs of getting there. Sign up anyway, and here's why I say that. Because somebody else might be thinking about signing up for that group. And they might see you there and like, no, I don't want to go to that group, they're in that group. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They might look at that and say, hey, I know them. I talked to them the other week in worship service. I sit next to them every week in worship. I was talking to them out in the lobby, or I know they've got a kid my kid's age or something like that. So I'm going to check out that group because there's somebody there that I know I'm going to know, and it's going to make me a little more comfortable. So if you're in a regular group, go ahead and sign up anyway. Sign up on the paper copies. Jump online to the Sign Up Genius and use that too. But find a group and make community a priority. And I want to tell you just really, really quickly too, just the different kinds of groups we have. And we have groups that meet here on campus. We have groups that meet in homes. We have groups that meet on Fridays. We've got several groups that meet on Fridays. We've got a ladies group that meets on campus here Wednesday mornings, midday, noonish. And we've got two groups. One group that is completely online that meets on Sunday afternoons. And then we have a group that meets on Friday nights in person and virtually. And so that particular group, they set up multiple screens around the room and cameras, so everybody is on camera that's in person, and the people who are online can see everybody and can interact with everybody. It's a really, really neat system. So I want to encourage you to sign up for a group, but I want you to not discount the online part of things. And I think a lot of times, especially as we came out of COVID and kind of everything went online, I think a lot of times we see online as not being the real thing. And I just want to push back on that a little bit. And I hear pastors saying that all the time, and I push back with them too. But we are seeing life change in our church happening through our online experiences, small groups and worship. We have people who worship with us, who are worshiping with us right now, who because of their circumstances, the particular area where they live, they just can't find a church that believes what we believe and teaches what we teach and treats people the way that we treat people. And so they found us, and it's making a difference in their life, and it's a way for them to connect with us every Sunday. Some of them give financially to this church to support what we're doing, and they're tuned in almost every Sunday, and they're growing in their faith because of our online presence. We had a couple of years ago, we started an online group called Grief Share. And we had people find us through Grief Share from all over the place. And I want to tell you about one family that used to attend our church. Some of you know Ernie and Beverly. They attended our church for years. Their kids grew up in our church, and then they retired and moved out of the area. And then they moved back to Virginia, but they're way out in Winchester, so they couldn't make it here. And Ernie had mobility issues. He had a really severe injury when he was a young 20-something, and it caused him to be partially have paralysis. And as he got older, it got worse and worse and worse. And by the time they moved back here to Virginia, it had gotten pretty significant, and he really couldn't get out much at all. And so Ernie was homebound, and his wife Beverly was his caregiver. They were also raising their granddaughter who has Down syndrome. And so a lot going on, and they just couldn't get out. They never were able to connect with the church physically out where they were living. Churches didn't have online stuff going on. And they found us again through when we were in COVID and we were online, and they jumped back on. And then Beverly found her way into some small groups, and she found her way into Grief Share. And then about a year or so later, Ernie passed away. And I went out to Winchester to do his funeral. And there were two people there who attend our church, who are part of those small groups and were part of that Grief Share, who had never met Beverly physically, never been face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball with her. They'd only been online with her, but they were there for her during that time she needed it the most. And that's the power of small groups. That's the power of what we have going on with our online stuff. So don't discount that. If online is the best fit for you, it really is the real deal. and you can really have genuine community and worship through that. So I've said enough. Let's find a group, jump in it. If you have questions, I'll be around this week and throughout the month until our groups launch later in this month. Let's stand and sing one more time as our worship leaders come.